Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight in athletics at University of Texas. My guest today is the Women's Athletic Director. She is Christine Plonsky, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I grew up originally in Western Pennsylvania, near a little bit east of Pittsburgh. My mom and dad are both from there. Big football country too. But my dad was a college athlete, fortunate enough to be on a college football scholarship. He moved us to Northeast Ohio in the mid 60s. And so I went to Kent State University and studied journalism there from 75 through 79.
Wow, great. So let's go back into high school. What year did you start thinking about college? What year were you starting to see what colleges were all about, and how you ended up at Kent State?
Well, it sure started long before high school. I was very fortunate that both of my parents had been college educated, and education was primary in our household. I have four younger sisters. I'm the eldest of five girls. We were all going to go to college, and that was expressed at the dinner table from the time we were in grade school. And by the way, in those days, again, late 60s, getting into the 70s, we were going to pay our own way through college because it was, you were able to do that then. And so we all had jobs part-time from the time we could babysit or work somewhere else. But at the end of the day, I really started thinking about what I was going to study in college in high school, and I really did love reading, writing, and by the time I got to Kent, which had a very venerated journalism program, you got to remember I went to school in the Watergate era, so the Washington Post stories in that era were incredibly motivating, just to see what journalism was, true hard reporting journalism. But I love sports. And I, knew what Sports Illustrated was and the sports section of the paper. So I studied journalism at Kent with the intent to be a sports writer. But during my undergraduate days, my job, again, because I was paying my own way through school, was to work for our college student newspaper, the Daily Kent Stater, in various positions. But I also got a break and was told to go find the sports information office in the athletics department. I had no idea then that a college athletics program actually had a publicity office, and I was hired to actually do the first compilation and statistical maintenance of our women's sports program. And so I was working alongside all of my colleagues that were, again, in charge of all the other sports. So I worked every football game, every basketball game, and was a student assistant in the sports info office at Kent. Helped me pay my way through school, and complementary to my journalism experience with the Daily Kent Stater and other things, actually had my resume pretty full by the end of my college career. And I was able to continue to be employed in sports information. And my first job right out of college was at Iowa State as a full-time sports information employee in the athletics department at Iowa State.
Wow, fantastic. So
yeah. Those years of, those part-time jobs, they all add up. So I still tell people, get experience while you're in college. That is the key.
Absolutely. So now you go to Kent State, and how do you go from Kent State to becoming the Women's Athletic Director at the University of Texas?
Well, remember the era that I went to school in. Again, I was in high school in the 70s. Title IX passed in 72. So there was true effort to organize opportunities for women, not only at the high school level, but at the college level. And by the time I graduated from Kent, many intercollegiate programs across the country were merging their women's sports, which probably up to that point had been under maybe the physical education model. The physical ed department was overseeing women's sports and women's sports competition. So when I got to Iowa State in 79, for example, they had just merged the women's programs under one umbrella with the men. And so we were all one family. And so it was a great era of the old Big Eight conference. And I worked 2.5 years there, and then got a chance to come to the University of Texas for the first time in the fall of 1981. They had a very dynamic woman running the women's athletics department here named Donna Lopiano. She was the consort of the men's athletics director at that point, DeLoss Dodds, who had just gotten here as well in 1981.
Wow.
And together they were building a model program across the country. And I was, again, a publicist for our women's side, worked several years there, and got another big break. I never, I love the campus so much. I love a campus setting, but, campuses and institutions belong to conferences. And so back then, Texas was in the Southwest Conference, and I got an offer to work at a very unique conference in the East. It was the original Big East Conference, conference office located in Providence, Rhode Island. And so the schools that I served as a publicity person and then an administrator in my 7.5 years there were Georgetown, Villanova, Syracuse, UConn, those great basketball schools.
Yeah.
So working in a conference office was very different because it's more managerial, although you spend a lot of time on your member schools' campuses, but it truly taught me the power of collaboration between schools in a league and what the managers of the conferences do. And after 7 years there, though, I miss that campus feel. I miss seeing kids and coaches every day. And Texas called me back, and so I've been back here since 1993.
Wow, fantastic. So let's go into University of Texas and the sports there and all that you do. Can you give us a little sense of the sports at University of Texas, Austin?
Sure. Texas has a great athletics tradition, but a great academic tradition as well. And I will tell you, even though as a kid, my dad, taught me who Darrell Royal was, the football coach, and that unique burnt orange color and the hook 'em horn sign that is very unique. I knew who Earl Campbell was and some of the greats. The sort of the hidden secret pre-media days for all of our sports was really the academic reputation of the University of Texas. It is the flagship school of the state of Texas, and so we have a huge enrollment. It's large. We have about 52,000 students here, over 40,000 undergrads, and great graduate programs in law, business, engineering, etc. But our 20 sports, we have 11 women's sports and 9 men's. A lot of people pay attention to the typical sports of football, where we won 3 national championships. But we have been long excellent across the board. We have what we call a broad-based program. We have 500 student athletes, about half and half men and women, who compete in those sports in the new Big 12 conference, which I say new because we have 10 members in the Big 12. The Big 10 has 14 members. So, math doesn't work anymore in these names. But the business of what we do, really, and my mother, I think, still thinks I just go to games, but I define our jobs in athletics this way. We are giving a collegiate experience to 500 young people who are other people's children. They're here doing the same thing that any undergraduate student would do. They're figuring out the next arc of their life. They're studying at a world-class institution. They're going to a very competitive academic school, but they also have a gift and a love for the sport that they pursue. And whether you're a volleyball player, a baseball player, a football player, a basketball player, a tennis player, or a golfer here, you're serious about that. And we have 400 plus employees in Texas athletics who combine to give that young person a great experience. Some of them coach, some of them are assistant coaches, some are athletic directors like Mike Perrin, our men's AD, and myself, but we have huge units of support in sports medicine and healthcare, academic services who help our students find their major and learn how to study in college and succeed in college, prepare them for internships and other things that lead down to a full-time job. We have a huge marketing division, a huge publicity division, huge events and facilities. Because we have a $200 million budget for our sports programs, and that's large, like Ohio State, like Penn State, like Michigan, we're responsible for raising every penny of that. So we also have large marketing and fundraising staffs. Again, every penny that we raise goes against an experience for those 500 young people. So just like a faculty person here would tell you, I don't have a job if I'm not teaching students. We feel that we wouldn't have the opportunities to do what we do in our various roles if we weren't serving these student athletes.
Now, some of the marketing, do you handle all of the marketing as well? You were telling me before the show a little bit about IMG.
Yes. As I told you, we're a self-sustaining organization. That's called an auxiliary operation on our campus, and there are others. But auxiliary means you have to raise your own revenue. So when I came back to Texas in '93 after my stint at the Big East, my original job was over those external marketing areas, but it was also to work with our selling arm, which is a vendor. It's now IMG. Back in those days, it was Host Communications, which was acquired by IMG. But we have a sales staff here of IMG employees who represent us in our sales area for sponsorships, promotions, use of our mark, anything that would generate revenue that, again, we put right back up against the experience that we give our kids. Trademark and licensing is a separate unit within that area of revenue generation. So we have several individuals on our staff who are trademark and licensing experts, and the royalties that are generated through use of that mark, meaning, when you go buy a T-shirt or a hat with that vaunted Longhorn silhouette logo that everybody knows about,
Yeah.
that is generating royalties for the University of Texas. And we steward that program for not only UT Austin, but all of our UT schools, UTEP, UTSA. We work with all of our UT institutions. And then the third area of revenue generation has to do with fundraising. And frankly, everybody in our department is responsible for working with our fundraising staff to represent ourselves to the donors who, like at every school in the country, regardless of Division I, II, and III in the NCAA, they're reaching in their pockets and they're buying tickets or they're sending donations at a tax deductible level to support the university. It just so happens when they send it here, you could support the College of Education or the College of Engineering. But in athletics, we work like these units on campus and we fundraise. We just completed a record-setting year in 2016-17 for a fundraising year in terms of generation of not only donations but pledges. So
Wow.
It's a very good time to be in that area at the University of Texas, but our whole campus is fundraising. State-supported schools actually engender a lot of private support because we're only getting probably about 10% of our academic budget from tax dollars. So everybody on campus in some way, if you work for an academic unit, you're also a fundraiser.
Gotcha. Now, how about, because a lot of parents always talk about the tuition. The tuition is big at the college level. What does the University of Texas do to, help those families out?
There's a lot of financial aid available, and I'll speak to it from athletics standpoint. Other than the GI Bill, athletic scholarships in this country have been responsible for providing the path and the access to higher education for more young people other than the GI Bill. So when you think about the opportunities, if you are a deserving student athlete and scholarship worthy, you're offsetting what would be your, again, expenses to attend college. They've changed the rules in the Autonomy 5 group where we actually have added cost of attendance. At our place, it happens to be a little over $4,200, $4,300. We can now apply the cost of attendance on top of a full scholarship for our students. Our other students, undergraduate and graduate otherwise, again, they can apply for competitive scholarships and financial aid. But for a state school that is ranked as highly as Texas is in multi-levels of academia, we still have a very reasonable in-state and out-of-state tuition and fees equation. But again, it's very competitive. I will tell you at Texas, we just admitted our largest freshman class ever, 8,400 students this fall.
Wow.
I think there were over 80,000 applications for those slots. So we remind our student athletes that this is a very coveted opportunity that you're partaking of to be a student athlete on our campus, because hundreds, if not thousands, of freshmen would trade spots with our incoming freshmen to have a chance to go to school at this great university in a beautiful place like Austin, Texas.
Now, a lot of students, they always think about the big sports like football and basketball. But for women's sports, what happens with the non-revenue sports? Do a lot of the students still get scholarships or money at those sports as well?
We are fully funded, fully scholarshiped, and always have been. As I told you, in the early 80s, the dynamic leadership of Donna Lopiano, who was our first full-time women's AD, we had, during the time that I first came to Austin in the 80s, we had 8 sports, and we were fully operational. I mean, Donna was already selling season tickets in basketball and volleyball, had a full-time fundraiser and a full-time marketer. You transfer that today, more than almost 40 years later, it's that way for all of our sports. I will tell you, we don't use the term non-revenue sports here. We do say Olympic sports, but every sport has a chance to create revenue, be it through ticket sales for attendance purposes, fundraising, but also there's another way where you can create, again, the backstop against the expenses for each sport, and that is through fundraising. We believe that men's swimming, for example, here, men's swimming has won 13 national titles, women's swimming has won 9. Swimming and diving is a sport that we always will want to have here, even though it's been reduced across the board, across the country. But we produce Olympians and national team qualifiers out of our programs, and diving as well. So the United States Olympic Committee, for example, has great interest in collaborating with schools like ourselves, like Stanford, like Florida, like USC, who produce Olympians in these sports where colleges have almost served as a training ground. And if you look at our medalists in Rio, I think 82% of the U.S. medalists in sports had a college sports experience nexus at some point. So our revenue generation can be through underwriting scholarships, donations through endowments. We want to endow our operating funds in some of these Olympic sports to make sure that they will always stay alive, because it's important not only to our university to allow those opportunities, but also to our Olympic team.
Great. Now, the sports in general, when they all come to school there, and the scheduling and all of that, that all comes on your hands. So how does that all work?
We have a large staff of events, facilities, and operations. Every sport here, fortunately, has an operations director, and they help the coaches and the students with travel, with itineraries, with logistics. Our scheduling, again, when you're in a good conference like the Big 12, a function of your schedule will be the conference set schedule. But again, Texas being Texas, we want to play teams in the non-league portion of our schedules in all of our sports, volleyball, baseball, track, etc., on both coasts, because we have 500,000 living alumni, and they're all over the world, not just in the domestic United States or in the state of Texas. So this year, for example, we played football at USC. Our women's basketball team played at Connecticut last year. UConn is returning that game this year. Track and field will have meets in Philly at the Penn Relays, or in Des Moines, Iowa at the Drake Relays. So baseball will have a series against Stanford. Connie Clark's softball team will have tournaments in Arizona and California before the Big 12 schedules. So the function of our schedules are operational, and sometimes it is a crossover. That's the big difference between college and pro sports. If you're in the San Antonio Spurs organization, you talk about the Spurs and their 82 regular season games 24/7. Well, this weekend, for example, we have a home football game. Our soccer team's at Baylor. Our volleyball team has an away match Wednesday and Saturday. We have fall ball for baseball and softball going on. Our cross-country team will be in a Big 12 championship a week from today that we're actually hosting on a course a little north of Austin. So, and basketball's around the corner. They start official practice today. So everything goes on in colleges. And so the Longhorns roll themselves out, if you will, in 20 different brands called our 20 different sports.
Wow. So now academics, that's a big thing with parents these days as well. They talk about schools like University of Texas and other big schools. It's all about the sport. It's never about academics. What's your take on that?
Well, it's reversed here. They're a student first, an athlete second, and what we want them to be after a 4 or 5 year experience here is a productive citizen, ready to go on and do whatever they need to do to take care of themselves, their partner, their spouse, their family, and to succeed. And so we believe in the personal leadership development. That is sort of the third part of the triangle: student, athlete, and developing leader. And so all of our staff members here have some part and parcel of helping that young person progress. But under NCAA rules today, you can't compete unless you're making accelerated progress. It's not reasonable progress anymore. It's actually accelerated progress towards your degree. For example, due to the academic rules put in about 14 years ago, you have to have 40% of your degree countable credits by your fifth semester and in a declared major for you to continue to be eligible and compete. So it's not lip service, not at a place like Texas where you've got, again, 88,000 applications for 8,400 slots as to be in this school. We tell our young people in athletics here, you're going to compete harder across campus in the classroom, maybe on some days, and you'll compete in the athletic circuit. But we hope they're both comparable, because that means that level of excellence is being reached for every day.
Now, do you get involved with anything with all the different sports on recruiting? Each sport takes care of that?
Again, for visits, for example, on a football weekend, every sport is recruiting. And I will not only meet with prospects, but also their parents and their family members. 2 weeks ago, we had a young person that, again, it was two young ladies actually in the sport of basketball, one of whom is already committed to us. She knows she's coming next fall. The other one has us on her radar among several other schools. So one was trying to recruit the other, if you mean, and they're both sets of parents were there with them. I love when that happens, because, again, we want to talk to the young people as well as their family to express as we would. We want you to hear everything that this is about here, including from leadership. Frankly, not much has changed in my speech about Texas since the 80s when I got here. I can promise their parents they are going to be in a place that values excellence. We want people that know how to be good teammates and good role players on a team. We want them to be serious students, because that's required here, and we have great academic and study hall learning structures around them. We're going to deliver the best in services to take care of them, from nutritionists to sports science to sports performance to the healthcare deliverers and athletic trainers. But we also are going to prepare them to have a successful life and a successful career. We want them to win. We love lighting our iconic tower orange when we have victories here in every sport, and we do that. But frankly, if we fail on the personal leadership development part of that triangle, in addition to the besides the student athlete part, we will not have completed our job. And I want parents and family members to hear those stories as well, in addition to our recruits.
Well, give us a little sense of what the school is like. What's the atmosphere at the University of Texas in Austin?
Well, today's about 77 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. So first of all, it's one of the most beautiful areas in this great state of Texas, which, as you know, has a population, I think, approaching 27 million, if it's not already there. Austin, which was about 320,000 people when I was first hired here in 1981, you can put a 1 million in front of that. We're well over 1 million too now. It's a big, growing city, very clean city, high-tech oriented. So the university is metropolitan. It's located downtown, right next to, we can see our Capitol building from our walls. It's one of the most transformative places in the world. It's, again, it's highly energetic. It's a great young person's town. It's really a place that the university and the city reside cohesively, and there's great energy, and there's nothing like an athletic event or a graduation to bring people together, and we do a lot of those here at the University of Texas.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the families out there that their sons and daughters are interested in going to University of Texas? What advice would you like to give them?
Well, again, it's a wonderful place, and I would say set your goals high and do your work early. I'm an old basketball player, so when you're playing defense or playing in a post position, your coaches tell you do your work early. Don't wait till the last minute to get in position. So If you're an eighth grader moving into high school where your course credits begin to count, start thinking then, because again, a school like Texas, very demanding. It wants the best and the brightest. So do your work early. I would tell them that if, again, they are athletic and they aspire to be a student athlete, again, start your work early. Communicate well, let people know that you aspire to be a scholarship student athlete, and get your communication patterns in line. But this, like many other colleges across the land, are truly places that give young people an opportunity to be great. And the habit here is University of Texas will take great young people and make them even greater. We have great faculty, great employees, and a marvelous setting here to allow them to realize their dreams.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on my show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. No problem. And you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.